Reading and ADHD, not the best of bedfellows, is what we'll go with. I've always struggled with reading in my adult life. When I was a child, I loved reading. I used to get really intensely into books. After sort of university, into my 20s, I just didn't read for some reason. So when I got diagnosed with ADHD, I was like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. However, in the last few years, actually pre being diagnosed with ADHD, I have kind of made some adjustments to how I go about trying to read, little kind of tips and strategies that I've kind of adopted to help me with essentially being able to read a bit more. I'm going to run those through for you today, now. Number 1, read what you enjoy. This sounds a bit weird to some people because like people that enjoy reading, they read what they enjoy because they enjoy it. I think sometimes there's a pressure on people to read certain types of books, classics or long books or fiction. The reality is, the more you feel this sort of external pressure, and particularly for someone with ADHD, the more you feel this kind of external pressure to do something, the less likely you are to do it. It's got to be something that's sort of self-driven, that's kind of driven by curiosity and fun. And so, yeah, I think the biggest lesson I've learned about reading more over the last few years is picking books that I like to read, because if I'm genuinely interested in the subject matter and the concept and whatever else, then I'm going to do it. Number 2, use tech to your advantage. I was always one of these people that was like, if I'm going to read a paperback novel and it's going to be, this sort of sacred experience. There is a place for that in a way, but when it comes to being able to read more, I really, really don't think that is the best way for people with ADHD. Unfortunately, the way of the world now, there is so much distraction and stuff knocking about that we're interested in. A physical traditional book is pretty low on the list of things that kind of get me excited and interested and ping that dopamine for me. Kindle in particular has this specific kind of functionalities built into it that actually are properly helpful, I think, for people with ADHD. So you've got things like being able to see how long you've got left in the chapter. Like you've got 7 minutes left, so it's like, fuck it, I'll carry on, I'll read it, I'll do it. You can see how far through the whole book you are. You can see highlights within the books as well from like other people, so you can like go flick to different things. It's like a little bit more interactive, a little bit more engaging, a bit more stimulating than a standard paperback book. I would say if you're struggling to read, try an ebook if you haven't, try a Kindle if you haven't. I know that it's owned by Amazon and all of that, but so's everything else. The other thing from a tech perspective is another thing that's owned by Amazon, fucking hell. Audiobooks. They're not owned, but you know what I mean. Audible is owned by Amazon, and that's the product service that I use. Audible is really good. Audiobooks are something that I'm quite good at listening to sometimes, but not all the time. When I listen to them like quite a lot in a row, and then I can go days and weeks and months without listening to an audiobook. But I have found that I use them in the same way that I use podcasts, which is when I'm doing something else. When I'm reading an ebook, a Kindle, that is like the only thing I should be doing, right? When I'm listening to an audiobook, that's to distract me from something else that's more boring than that, which is a great way of sneaking in reading. If I'm driving, or if I'm at the gym, or if I'm like washing the dishes, listening to an audiobook and I'd like to point out on probably 1.5, if not 2 times speed, because I ain't waiting around for some fucking narrator to waffle their way through something. I need it quick. 2 times speed, audiobook, while you're doing something else. And it's just that little bit of stimulation, right? And one of the key things about ADHD is there's a need for a low level of stimulation, or a certain level of stimulation, to help us in the right circumstance. It can be the perfect amount of stimulation just to kind of help us do other boring shit as well. So again, 2 birds, 1 stone, really. Number 3, accept that you might go through phases. So this year, here's what's happened. I've read 26 books now, I think, which is actually quite a lot of books for me. I think probably last year I maybe read about 15, the year before probably about 10. What's bizarre about it is I've read them in like phases and batches. So I haven't read a book every 2 weeks, which is what 26 books equates to. I've read 10 books in a month, and then nothing for 2 months. And that's kind of happened throughout the year. It's sort of annoying. It is kind of annoying in a way, because it's like, why can't I just keep that habit up over the year? If I read 10 books a month for a year, I'd read 120 books but I can't for whatever reason, probably related to ADHD. I just cannot get myself to keep up the habit in such a consistent way. I have to almost take it in that kind of waves. You know, there'll be times when I'm going to absolutely blitz through a couple of books in a week. There'll be times when I'm not going to read for a month. And that's kind of all right. You just kind of got to accept it a bit. That's how our minds tend to work. Make the most of it when you are interested. And if you're not, don't be too hard on yourself. Number 4. Read short books. This feels like a bit of a cheating one, I suppose. A bit like the first one of like reading what you enjoy. There's something about a long book, right, that's really, really off-putting to the ADHD mind, to my mind anyway. There's something about a long book that I look at it and I'm like, I can't be bothered with that. That's just too long. That's just too much for me to do. It's the overwhelm. It's that ADHD overwhelm at looking at a task and seeing too much in front of you. Just standing at the bottom of a mountain and just not being able to fathom how you can possibly climb it. In the past, I've tried to read these massive books. It's just, I think there's not enough reward and dopamine given by reading a long book. If for you that is something that does work, then fantastic. But I guess it's that long-term reward system that we struggle with. For me, I need that short-term reward, that short-term hit of dopamine, and the long book just doesn't do that. Number 5, make it easy and make it challenging. Ooh, they are contrasting, aren't they? The simple fact is I don't do stuff when it's too hard and I don't do stuff when it's too easy. So there's got to be that perfect Goldilocks zone of difficulty. I like to call it the Crash Bandicoot level of difficulty. Crash Bandicoot is just annoyingly challenging enough as a game, and I know this is a 25-year-old game, so some people are not going to know what this even is. Just that level of difficult that it keeps you coming back and you want to keep playing it, but just that easy enough that you don't give up and fuck it off. When it comes to reading, it might mean like how many books you want to read in a year. So you set yourself a challenge. I set myself a challenge of reading 100 books this year at the beginning of the year, which was absolutely fucking absurd. By setting myself that challenge of 100 books, I did end up reading way more than I would have read otherwise. There was a level of challenge to it that made me go, I want to try this. But in the end, I knew I wasn't going to read 100 books. That's it, really. Bye.